They said I was just a girl. From the moment I announced my decision to enlist in the United States Army at age 18, the world around me seemed determined to reinforce that message. My father, a steelworker who hadn't set foot on a military base since his own discharge decades earlier, looked at me over dinner one evening and said, "Amy, darling, the Army isn't exactly kindergarten. Are you sure about this? Women, they don't really belong in that world." His voice trembled slightly, as if admitting my dream threatened something his heart wasn't ready to relinquish. My mother, wiping dishes at the counter, chimed in with tears in her eyes. "Sweetheart, you'll make our family proud, but promise me you won't get hurt. They don't need girls like you out there. I've seen soldiers, been scared half to death when you said you'd join." Her worry was genuine, but I felt a pang of frustration. Why did she assume I was fragile? Why did everyone think I needed protection simply because I was born female? My older brother, Mark, who was finishing his second year of college at the time, rolled his eyes. "Great, she's going to go play Army Barbie and get herself killed," he muttered, loud enough for me to hear. He was right about one thing. No one believed I'd last past boot camp. Everyone assumed my heart wasn't as tough as my dreams. Just a girl. That phrase hung over me like a dark cloud as I moved forward. My friends tried to talk me out of it. My guidance counselor in high school warned, "Amy, the physical demands, the mental stress, most people can't handle it, especially a girl your age." And yet I felt a fire in my chest, an urgency to prove that I was not just a girl. I was someone with a purpose, and the uniform I would wear represented everything I yearned to become: strength, discipline, honor, leadership. 6 months later, with acceptance papers in hand and my pink duffel bag stuffed with brand new camo-patterned gear, I stood at the threshold of basic combat training. The day I arrived at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, a heavy August sun beat down on the asphalt, turning it into a furnace. I looked around at my fellow recruits, young men and women, diverse backgrounds, but all as nervous as I was. The drill sergeants barked orders in a dozen different directions, their voices slicing through the humid air like razor blades. My legs felt like jelly, but I squared my shoulders. I repeated to myself, "I belong here. I belong here. I belong here." During in-processing, a lanky recruit from Texas whispered to me, "You sure you're in the right place? I mean..." He let his sentence hang. I bristled. I adjusted my duffel bag strap and looked him in the eye. "I'm exactly where I need to be." And with that, I joined the flow of soldiers navigating administrative stations, medical checkups, and initial uniform fittings. That first night, I lay on the bunk, listening to the other recruits talk, fear, excitement, jokes to mask nerves. I didn't sleep. Instead, I went over our first day's schedule in my mind. Physical fitness test, uniform issue, introduction to drill and ceremony. I practiced push-ups and sit-ups quietly, forcing myself to match the numbers the male recruits claimed. They thought it was a private moment, but really, it was me cementing my promise to myself that no one would ever hear me say, "I can't." The next morning, heading to the field for the initial physical training assessment, I saw my reflection in a mess hall window. My uniform looked crisp, my hair buzzed close to my scalp, my face determined. I felt a jolt of pride. No turning back now. In that first physical fitness test, 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a timed 2-mile run, I gave everything. Men and women around me gripped their mats, chest heaving, sweat slick on their foreheads. When the clock hit 2 minutes on push-ups, I counted out 70, 70, then 68, 71. I felt my arms shake, but I didn't stop until the buzzer. For sit-ups, 75. Then the 2-mile run on that hot asphalt, pounding heart, lungs burning. I pushed for 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Not record-breaking, but solid. When I finished, the drill sergeant barked, "More, not bad, for a girl." He added the last words low enough so only I could hear. Inside, I wanted to punch him. Out loud, I straightened my cap and said nothing. I jotted my scores on the chalkboard where they recorded everyone's results. My name and scores stood out among the recruits. 3rd in push-ups, 2nd in sit-ups, and a respectable time on the run. By the evening, whispers circulated. "Who's that Moore chick? She's pretty ripped." That small recognition, earned on merit, felt like a glimmer of promise in the whirlwind of basic. From that moment on, every exercise, every obstacle course, every drill was a chance to prove I was more than what they assumed. Day after day, I hauled cases of ammunition through mud pits, mastered weapon systems, and learned how to navigate with a compass and topographical map. Men who once smirked at me began to nod curtly when I outperformed them on marksmanship tests, plating targets dead center at 200 meters. Drill sergeants started using my success as an example, sometimes with grudging respect, sometimes dripping sarcasm. Listen up, maggots. Moore here just outshot 50% of you. Don't let her ghosting mark scare you, or it will be a rough day for you. Every jab stung a little, but it pushed me harder. I learned that the Army rewarded results, and I vowed to deliver. When graduation day finally arrived, I stood in formation in pressed uniform, medals gleaming on my chest, family cheering from the stands. My father's eyes were moist. Mark's eyes were wide with disbelief. Press photographers snapped pictures, and a reporter even asked me, "How did it feel to stand toe-to-toe with these soldiers who doubted you? Did it ever get to you?" I looked past the camera, at my parents in the crowd. "It wasn't about them," I said. "It was about me. I came here to prove to myself that I belong. Today, I can say I do." From basic, I was chosen to attend AAT, Advanced Individual Training, specializing in military intelligence. Intelligence was where I thrived. Puzzles, patterns, hidden truths. The instructors sensed my analytical mind, parsing enemy communications, translating intercepted messages, building profiles of opposing forces. I spent nights hunched over classified documents, memorizing cryptographic codes and satellite imagery interpretations. At first, my classmates whispered, "She studies more than half of us combined and still drinks coffee like a trucker." I was the only woman in my cohort of 32. During exercises, I stood in the command tent, poring over maps while others debated tactics. I calculated enemy movement probabilities in seconds, predicting ambush points no one else saw. In one simulated mission, our class had to gather intelligence on a mock insurgent group based on intercepted chatter and drone footage. While others proposed broad strategies, I traced supply lines from satellite images, identified probable hideouts, and pinpointed a rendezvous location. My instructor looked at me, 20 years old, hair still damp from sweat, and said, "Moore, that analysis just saved our recon team's lives. I'm putting you in charge of the next exercise." The room fell silent. They had underestimated me again. Then I showed them they were wrong. Graduating AAT top of my class earned me the respect of my peers and the attention of higher-ups. I became the first woman from my training cycle to be selected for the School of Military Intelligence, SMI, in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, an achievement my chain of command said they'd never seen from a female private so early. I arrived at SMI determined to excel, even though some cadets snubbed their noses at a girl repurposing her life for espionage. During a rigorous field exercise, to gather human intelligence in hostile territory, I volunteered to infiltrate a mock foreign village, posing as a civilian school teacher to gather information. I spent days building relationships with role-playing villagers, weaving backstories, and earning trust. When I finally extracted the intel, enemy weapons caches, supply routes, and leadership hierarchies, in precise detail, even seasoned NCOs were stunned. "Private Moore, where did you get that level of insight?" asked one sergeant. "I did my homework," I answered. The intel led our simulated unit to a decisive victory in the exercise. From that point on, my instructors treated me as a token of what any soldier, regardless of gender, could achieve. Within 2 years, I rose from private to staff sergeant, a meteoric rise fueled by exceptional performance in both training and early deployments. My first deployment was to Afghanistan, attached to a combined joint task force. I embedded with Special Forces units, translating enemy messages, mapping IED placement patterns, and coordinating drone support. Under the harsh desert sun, I saw young soldiers, some only a year older than me, sacrifice everything. I learned that intelligence was more than data. It was lives in the balance. I spearheaded an intelligence cell that intercepted a high-value target's communications, leading to a key capture during a nighttime raid. When the operation succeeded with 0 friendly casualties, I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for my role. The ribbon felt heavy on my chest, but the true weight was the responsibility I felt for the lives saved. Returning stateside for a brief stint, I was promoted to Sergeant First Class. Suddenly, my uniform had 6 chevrons and a jewel. I was no longer the young private hungry to prove herself, but a non-commissioned officer tasked with mentoring new soldiers. I relished the opportunity to guide fresh recruits, especially the ones who reminded me of myself, boys and girls who wondered if they could belong. I told them bluntly, "You can, but don't let anyone convince you otherwise. When they say you're just a girl or too green, let your actions speak. Master the basics. Outwork them. Earn your stripes." I conducted a mentorship program for female soldiers in the intelligence field, helping them navigate the unique challenges of being women in a male-dominated specialty. We talked late at night about imposter syndrome, body armor not fitting properly, and regimental norms that treated us as novelties rather than equals. We bonded over textbooks in the barracks library and late-night video calls from separate forward operating bases. I urged them to use discouragement as fuel, just as I did, and to remember the mission always came first. My next deployment was to eastern Ukraine, a tense environment where Russian-backed separatists clashed with Ukrainian forces. I led an intelligence detachment working alongside Ukrainian military intelligence officers. Together, we tracked supply convoys and predicted enemy offensives. In one instance, we intercepted chatter about an imminent assault on a strategic town. I coordinated with local assets to plant listening devices, analyzed open-source satellite imagery to track armor movements, and predicted the insurgents' attack route. Our joint force repelled the assault at dawn, forestalling a major breach. For my leadership and decisiveness, I was awarded the Legion of Merit. The medal's gleam felt surreal on my uniform. A civilian journalist wrote an article highlighting the young American intelligence expert who saved a Ukrainian town, complete with photos of me in the cold dawn light, radio in hand. The title startled me. Just a girl? Think again. Within months of my return, I was recommended for officer candidate school. To be a female officer in military intelligence was rare, but to be a combat-decorated NCO being selected at age 22 was almost unheard of. I passed OCS with honors, earning my commission as a second lieutenant. My first assignment as an officer was to lead an intelligence platoon at Fort Hood, Texas. Now I was responsible for 45 soldiers, mentoring them, training them, analyzing intelligence together. I learned to balance administrative duties with operational demands, to translate strategic objectives into daily training schedules, and to foster a climate of trust. Some of the more senior officers raised eyebrows. "She's only 23 and a lieutenant. Can she handle it?" They questioned in hushed tones. But I'd been in the ring before, a private fighting to prove I belonged. This was just a new ring. When I led my platoon overseas to Iraq in support of Operation Inherent Resolve, our mission was to dismantle ISIS's remaining logistics networks. My team gathered signals intelligence, human intelligence, and open-source intel to identify funding streams and safe houses. I spent weeks embedded with local informants, building rapport and verifying data. In one critical operation, our analytics pinpointed a weapons smuggling route disguised within humanitarian aid convoys. I coordinated with Special Operations Forces to intercept the convoy. We seized over 50 high-caliber rifles, 1,200 rounds of ammunition, and multiple RPGs. Local news outlets covered it. U.S. intel teams cut off ISIS arms pipeline. My name was mentioned as the officer overseeing intelligence operations. I felt proud knowing that my work directly saved lives and undermined a brutal enemy. The Defense Meritorious Service Medal followed. By my 25th birthday, I had earned the rank of captain. Promotions had come swiftly, a testament to my performance, but also a reminder of the skepticism I'd fought at every stage. Now I was invited to staff meetings at the battalion and brigade levels, contributing to regional strategy discussions. Officers twice my age sought my input on intelligence estimates, and I never hesitated to speak up. I presented analytical briefings showing insurgent pressures shifting from one province to another, substantiated by intercepted communications and satellite imagery analysis. Generals listened, sometimes nodding, sometimes challenging my assumptions, but more than once they leaned back in their chairs and said, "Your analysis holds. We adjust our posture accordingly." In those moments, I knew I wasn't just the girl, I was their peer. Shortly after, I was selected to attend the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, normally a school for mid-career officers in their late 30s. At 26, I was one of the youngest students ever accepted, surrounded by colonels and lieutenant colonels, many more experienced in strategy and policy. I dove into deep studies of grand strategy, joint operations, and international relations. My thesis, an examination of hybrid warfare tactics and the role of artificial intelligence in predictive intelligence, earned the Dean's Award for Excellence. Professors repeatedly asked, with genuine surprise, "Your depth of analysis for someone of your junior rank is remarkable." In response, I simply quoted one of my mentors: "Rank might open a door, but knowledge keeps it open." Upon graduation, I was offered a billet as the intelligence officer S2 for a brigade combat team stationed in Germany under U.S. Army Europe. As S2, I oversaw intelligence gathering, analysis, and distribution for a brigade comprising over 3,500 soldiers. My team's focus was on emerging threats near NATO's eastern flank, cyber intrusions, troop movements, and potential disinformation campaigns. Under my guidance, my analysts detected an uptick in Russian electronic warfare exercises near the border, alongside increased activity on social media platforms designed to sow discord in local populations. I coordinated with cyber units to harden communication networks and worked with civil affairs teams to launch counter-disinformation campaigns among local civilian populations. The brigade commander commended my proactive stance, noting that our intel work had likely saved Allied lives during a surprise exercise by Russian forces. In recognition, I received the Joint Service Commendation Medal. My name circulated in NATO intelligence circles. I began to receive emails from foreign intelligence officers asking for my insight. At 28, I was promoted to major. Now my responsibilities grew. I advised on strategic-level planning, contributed to policy discussions at NATO, and oversaw a battalion intelligence section. I traveled to Brussels to brief Allied command operations, presenting intelligence estimates on potential hybrid threats to Eastern Europe. My briefing slides, concise, data-driven, supplemented with open-source indicators, drew nods from some of the highest-ranking NATO officers present. Admirals and generals approached me afterward to thank me for cutting through the noise and providing clarity. The first time a four-star general used those words about my work, I felt a swell of pride, but never lost sight of the journey. The girl no one believed in, now informing the decisions of world leaders. Despite the accolades, every milestone carried echoes of my early challenges. At staff meetings, I occasionally sensed colleagues whisper, "She's moving too fast." I once heard a colonel say under his breath, "I don't know if she's cut out for the stars and stripes at that rank." Those words fueled me. I responded by working harder, mentoring younger officers, publishing articles in official journals on intelligence innovation, and spearheading a pilot program integrating machine learning tools into battlefield intelligence analysis. When the pilot program resulted in a 30% faster threat detection cycle, senior leadership called me to Washington to brief the Secretary of Defense. Standing at that podium, I recalled the jeers from that first drill sergeant and the doubt in my family's eyes, and I let a quiet smile cross my face as I said, "This is what happens when you don't let your critics define you." At 29, I was selected for promotion to lieutenant colonel, a record for my age in my branch of military intelligence. But still, the ultimate challenge loomed, becoming a general officer. Most officers reach colonel in their early 40s, and only then even entertain the possibility. Yet after years of exceptional performance, 3 combat deployments, multiple joint assignments in Europe, and the reputation for strategic brilliance, I was nominated for the Army's General Officer Promotion Board at age 31. I waited in quiet intensity as the board convened, reviewing my service record, decorations, key assignments, performance evaluations, and letters of recommendation from generals who attested to my leadership and innovative contributions. As rumors swirled about the board's decisions, an article surfaced in a military-focused publication, Whispers on the Hill. Could Amy Moore become the youngest female brigadier general ever? I stared at the headline in my office at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, as autumn leaves drifted past the window. My heart pounded, but I remained calm. Years of learning to control my emotions in high-stakes moments had taught me that restraint was my greatest weapon. Finally, the day came. I was summoned to the Pentagon. In the grandeur of the Hall of Heroes, under portraits of storied generals, I was handed the official promotion orders. I sank into the leather chair, reading the words, "Effective on this date, Amy L. Moore is promoted to Brigadier General, United States Army. The weight of heat rose to my cheeks. A swirl of gratitude, disbelief, and pride filled me. I closed my eyes and let the moment wash over me. Years of sweat, sacrifice, and defying expectations culminating in this confirmation. I wasn't just a girl. I was now one of the youngest generals in Army history, and the youngest female general ever. The promotion ceremony took place a month later in Fort Myers Historic Theater, lined with polished oak and glowing brass fixtures. My parents, brother, grandparents, and a handful of close friends filled the front row. When the time came, generals and dignitaries stood in formation on stage. The Army Chief of Staff pinned a single star to my uniform. As the star settled on my shoulder, a hush fell over the room, followed by a storm of applause. Tears pricked my eyes. I could see my father in the audience, his own eyes glistening as he realized that his daughter had become everything he never imagined. My mother dabbed at her cheeks with a tissue. Mark sat a little straighter, a proud smile cracking his usual teasing expression into genuine admiration. After the applause died down, I stepped to the podium, my heart hammered, breath steady. I scanned the audience of allies and soldiers. "Thank you," I began, voice clear. "To everyone who believed in me when no one else did, my family, my mentors, my soldiers, I carry your faith with me every day. I'm living proof that barriers are meant to be broken. And to every girl who was told she couldn't, wear that doubt like armor and march forward." The room erupted in applause again, but this time, I felt something shift in my soul. I was no longer defined by doubt, I was defined by possibility. Within a week of the ceremony, global news outlets carried the headline, "History Made. Amy Moore becomes youngest female brigadier general in U.S. Army." The video clip of my pinning ceremony went viral. Millions watched the star placed on my shoulder, the audience's cheers echoing as I saluted the flag. Social media flooded with messages, inspiring, trailblazer, a new era for women in the military. Schools invited me to speak to students via livestream. Women's leadership forums sought my advice. And while I appreciated the recognition, I never forgot the countless others who paved the way. Women who wore unfit uniforms, who endured discrimination, who quietly excelled without accolades. My achievement, though personal, belonged to all of us who dared to challenge tradition. 2 months later, I traveled to Europe once again, this time to accept an invitation to address the NATO Women, Peace and Security Conference in Brussels. The theme, breaking glass ceilings in uniform service. Standing before a sea of international delegates, military officers, diplomats, policymakers, I recounted my journey, from a timid high school graduate met with skepticism, to a determined private, to a soldier distinguished in combat, to a brigadier general. I spoke candidly about the hurdles women still face in uniform, uneven maternity policies, gender-based microaggressions, and persistent stereotypes. I offered strategies for mentorship programs, cultural reforms, and equitable training opportunities. When I finished, the room was silent for a beat, then thunderous applause. Delegations approached me afterward, expressing admiration, and more importantly, a readiness to act on reforms. In that moment, I felt my journey had come full circle. Not only had I proven my own worth, but I had opened doors for every woman soldier behind me. Today, as the youngest female general in history, I carry more than my star. I carry the hopes of countless young women who will follow. When I walk onto a parade field now, soldiers in formation salute me with crisp precision. "All rise for Brigadier General Moore." That phrase, once a mocking whisper, "just a girl," has transformed into a testament to resilience. Each time I glance at the single star on my uniform, I remember standing at 18 in my parents' kitchen, facing tears and doubt, and choosing to step forward anyway. So if you ever doubt your place in this world, if someone tells you that you're just a girl, or just a boy, or just whatever, remember this: labels are shackles if you let them be. Instead, let them be the wind at your back. Push forward, earn your stripes, and make them swallow their words when they stand at attention before you. We invest our enough time to create these videos. Kindly subscribe, like and share the video, and if you have any questions, comment below. Thanks for watching, mate. Bye.